Listen, I know that we're only 2 or so months into the NASCAR season, but to me, it is never too early to start doing our schedule predictions. And with rumors coming out about going to Canada, Brazil maybe, going outside of the country, street races, and just other tracks in general having rumors, I thought it was a perfect time to get into it, so let's get into it. What we're going to do is I'm just going to go through the entire schedule and list off basically what I think is going to happen and change. And honestly, for the top 3 series, if you liked the month of February this year, it's going to stay the same probably. I think we're going to go back to Bowman Gray for the Clash. Of course, Speed Week might be the same, maybe an added practice here or there, and Atlanta's going to stay the same. I think this is a good way to start the year, and while Brazil is something that I think is on the horizon at some point for the Clash, I don't think it's 2026. Based on reports, Bowman Gray is the leader to bring this race back, and I don't see why it would change. The first big change is with the third points race of the year, and this is also the last Fox race of the start of the year before we go to FS1 for a few weeks. And I think it's going to be one that comes out with a bang, and that's San Diego for a street race. This has been talked about a bit, and Steve Phelps, even back in January, said it was a priority for them, and I do think it's something they're going to get done. Chicago is sounding like it's going to run its course, spoilers for later in the schedule, and they have talked about trying to get back into that Southern California area. While I think it's only going to be a double feature of Cup and Xfinity, I do think that this is going to take one of the dates away from Phoenix through the schedule, but not in the way that people think. I don't think it's going to be one that just takes it fully away, but more just for a year or two the way that Chicago took the date away from Road America or Chicagoland Speedway in the middle of the summer. So I think San Diego here, then Vegas for their triple header. I do think Phoenix will have one lone date for a little bit. They've shown that they've started to slow down on ticket sales, and they're not going to have the finale, so that's probably going to hurt as well. And I think they consolidate it into one weekend the way that they have now in the spring with the 2 top series. And then Coda, on the way back from the West Coast, will be right after that. And Darlington will be the last Cup race before the lone bye week of the year for Cup in Easter. Darlington, of course, having a double feature of Xfinity and Cup. And then the 2 lower series go to Rockingham for Easter weekend on Friday and Saturday, with Easter Sunday off, as NASCAR fans weren't too keen on that, but are more open to other days in the weekend. From there, we get it back going again with a double feature of short tracks, Martinsville and Bristol back-to-back with triple headers on 3 separate days. And I do think that Martinsville and Darlington do swap dates on the schedule simply for one reason. The Masters will be on the weekend of the 12th, and generally short track races are lower rated, and I think this is one where Fox and NASCAR want to bite the bullet, whereas you're going to have a lot of momentum early in the season, and Darlington usually brings in a lot of people, especially when it comes early in the year, and it's another warmer weather date that I think would work really, really well. After that, we have Talladega with their doubleheader of Talladega Cup on Sunday, Xfinity then on Saturday, a Texas tripleheader at the start of May, the week after, and then Trucks and the Cup Series go to Kansas on Saturday and Sunday for Mother's Day weekend like they are this year. And then, of course, Fox's run ends with the All-Star Race and Truck Series at North Wilkesboro. This would be pretty much the same other than the Darlington and Martinsville flip, and then of course San Diego being added on and Coda being a little later in the schedule. Generally about the same. Then we go to Prime. We have the Coke 600 and a weekend at Charlotte the way it has been for years, and then Nashville the weekend after. I think Michigan then follows it up the same way, so the opening 3 weeks of the Prime slate of the schedule is the same across the board. Pocono goes to June 14th, in my opinion, and then has a triple header weekend because, well, Father's Day is the week after, and I think that they have probably pigeonholed in Mexico City as the race for Father's Day. It's on a 2-year deal, so this will probably be the last year of them being in Mexico unless they re-up it, and they'll have that close out the Prime section of the season with race number 17. Turner opens up with Atlanta, and I think Atlanta gets moved to a Sunday night. It's better for ratings, and I think that Turner and TNT will actually gain a little bit, meaning that Saturday will be, instead of a doubleheader of Cup and Trucks, will be Xfinity and Trucks. Xfinity at Atlanta, and the Trucks, I think, will go another year at Lime Rock. Now, my bias might get in the way here, but 4th of July weekend, I think we have a triple header race weekend, still in the Chicago area, this time back at Joliet for the first time since 2019 at the Chicagoland Speedway. There have been different reports and things that I've heard of and others have talked about that NASCAR does not want to leave the Chicago area again after what happened with those few years off because of COVID. And I think that this is something that they're really going to keep up with. We've seen different races at Chicagoland Speedway and different events. The track has generally been kept in good condition, and it just makes sense to go there with this car as it would race well with a very worn out surface. Of course, Sonoma and Dover are the weeks after that, like they are now, except I think that Sonoma is only going to be the Cup race that year. I think we see a doubleheader on Saturday before the Sonoma race on Sunday in Montreal. We've heard the rumor of them having a weekend. It would have to be probably about this date on back to maybe the middle of June, because you do have the F1 race that's going to be there in May. You do have a lot of stuff in August, and they push to not have a later summer date. So I think midsummer is when they have it. And then closing out the in-season tournament as well as the Turner Sports side of the schedule is the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis with Xfinity on Saturday and Trucks at IRP on Friday. Then we go to the NBC portion of the year, the last 14 weeks. Opening it up with a Sunday night race at Iowa, the same way it is now. The next week it changes up, as I do think New Hampshire gets moved back out of the playoffs, but kept on the NBC portion of the year. USA is going to be the ones that have the race on both TV and maybe sponsoring it like they do now. So I do think that New Hampshire, it's going to stay on this side of the schedule. After that, we have Richmond, which leads into the regular season finale for Cup at Daytona. All of these weekends will be kept the same way they are now, with Iowa and Daytona getting both Cup and Xfinity, and New Hampshire and Richmond getting Cup and Trucks, which leads us into the NASCAR playoffs. I think we open up at Gateway this time. It makes sense to open up a Gateway as it's earlier on in the playoff schedule, and Labor Day weekend is about a week back on the Cup schedule right now. So I think instead of taking a week off, NASCAR wants to consolidate the schedule up, avoid the NFL as much as possible, and in doing so means that Gateway opens it up, and then the Southern 500 will be the week after with the Truck Series in Darlington as well, while Xfinity goes again to Portland. And then the first round, if the playoffs are the same as they are now, ends at the Bristol night race with the Saturday night race there, the last Saturday night race of the year, with Xfinity on Friday, Trucks on Thursday. And I think Watkins Glen gets moved back after a year of being back at its normal date. It makes sense to move it there, as there might not be a Giants or Jets game there. There might not be that kind of fight for New York sports supremacy, and you're able to have your lone road course in the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck playoffs. Spoiler for a little bit later, Kansas has a doubleheader of Xfinity and Cup again, and then I think that Charlotte goes from the Roval to the Oval. The Roval has been phasing out over time. I think having a triple header this year is the last gasp effort, as it just is pretty clear that people don't watch it as much on TV as they would watch an oval race, and the attendance in person is nothing special whatsoever, and I think the Oval could get better. So I think we go to a second of 3 straight intermediates for both Cup and Xfinity, with Las Vegas the week after. And the final 3 weeks, I think, line up the way that they do now, with 3 triple headers on 3 separate days, first at Talladega, then at Martinsville, then at Homestead. But the season ending on November 1st, which it does line up that way, and the rumors have been out there for, at the Homestead Miami Speedway. So the Cup playoffs go like this: Gateway, Darlington, Bristol, the Glen, Kansas, Charlotte, Las Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville, Homestead. Make of that what you will. because it could be 3-3-3-1, it could be an invert, it could be the first 3, then the last 7 are inverted there. We have no idea what the format's going to be, and NASCAR might not even decide on it until around January, so the schedule has to be finalized beforehand. The Xfinity playoffs will be the Glen, Kansas, Charlotte, Las Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville, and Homestead. And the truck playoffs will be Richmond, Darlington, Bristol, the Glen, Talladega, Martinsville, Homestead. The cutoff races being Daytona for Cup, Bristol for Xfinity, and New Hampshire for the trucks, as that's just where it lands on the schedule. Overall, I think this is a realistic schedule. I think that it has a few of those changes that can go a little bit above and beyond, while at the same time not going too crazy with it. I do think that the furthest ones out there are probably going back to Chicagoland, as well as having a San Diego race. One way or another, though, I do think that the Chicago street race and the Roval end up being off the schedule. One, because Chicago as a city is probably going to ask for more money, and it's seemingly run its course. And then for the Roval, it really has run its course, and the only reason I could see it staying on is because of Marcus Smith wanting it. I think that 2027 we'll see a lot more international races, Brazil for the Clash possibly, and then Montreal in the Cup Series, as well as maybe some others. Saudi Arabia's been on the radar at some point, whether we like it or not. And I do think that we're going to see some bigger changes the further we get into this contract. But I think that next year we're going to see minimal changes with a few big highlights. So now I want to know what you think. In the comments down below, let me know your predictions for the schedule heading into 2026. I know it's early, but let's just have some fun with it. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.